Hi everybody and welcome back to the latest video on the Wolves Fancast YouTube channel. It's me, Gully, with another tactical analysis. I did manage to get through some of the abysmal 6-0 walloping that we got from Brighton at the weekend. And someone had to kind of try and get to the bottom of what on earth went on. I managed to get to half-time. I think I've kind of got everything I needed from that point. So we won't try. I don't think we're going to get too much from watching the second half anyway, but we won't dwell on it too much. I don't want to keep this to a long video, but to start with, I actually think there are a couple of kind of sliding doors moments within this game itself. You can see straight away here that within 30 seconds, in that image on the left, you got Mario Lemina breaking towards the edge of the box with Pedro Neto open outside of him. He doesn't manage to find him. What could have been in that scenario. And the other one was actually at 1-0 in the game. Pedro Neto breaking into the penalty area on his left foot, likely to get a shot off at goal. And David Coote, I think it was the referee, inexplicably stops the game because Diego Costa and Adam Webster were kind of grinding on each other in the middle of the pitch. Unfortunately, that's not worked in our favour in that game. And obviously, we deserve nothing from it, but goals change games whenever they're scored. So who knows what might have happened if we did manage to go 1-0 up or potentially even go equalise to get to 1-1 and give ourselves a bit of a foothold within the fixture. Brighton are a team I think that you have to show respect to. They are one of the most interesting teams in terms of the way they're set up, the way they keep the ball, especially in possession. And this is a very kind of regular occurrence, this kind of freeze frame we've got here to talk through. As you can see, this is the initial way we set up. This was at 0-0. And I've kind of highlighted with the kind of thicker black lines here our midfield four who are strung across the middle of the pitch. Balls with Webster at the back, and you've almost got a bit of a 4-4-2. The game is incredibly compact here. Kind of everybody from Brighton's last line to our last line within about kind of 30 to 40 yards of each other almost. And this is how Brighton like to kind of play, but we've got a bit of a plan. You can see here that we're inviting a pass into the strikers, Undav and Welbeck, who've kind of dropped off the centre halves. We don't really want the deeper midfielders to pick up the ball because then they'll start. They almost have these kind of automatic passing triangles that they create to draw people out and create space further up the pitch. And I think one of the key tactics that we used was having João Gomez on the right side of the midfield to try and stop Pervis Estupiñán, who was really influential in the game at Molineux earlier this season. But as you kind of progress through this move, you can see that the ball goes out to Dunk. He passes the ball into Dennis Undav, and we've got Dawson coming in really tight. He's not man-to-man touch tight, but you want the pass to come in, and that's the trigger for Dawson to go in and actually make a challenge. And we came up with the ball in this scenario. You can see here João Gomez actually comes away with the ball, and we built possession and won a throw-in, I think, in the end of this situation. So I actually think the initial setup in terms of the way we were playing out of possession wasn't too bad. But we conceded 2 goals. That was the biggest problem that we had ultimately. And you can see kind of from the way that the game was played, when we got the ball, we made mistakes. Now, this was at 1-0. This is the build-up to the second goal. When you think about the first goal in particular, wasn't really anything to do with the shape of the team. It was ball kind of building up play out wide, getting down the left flank. Cross came out to the right back Veltman, who put in kind of an interesting little ball into the area. There was a flick, and the penalty box defending there wasn't particularly good at all. Nobody was really impacting anything. We allowed Brighton to pick up the second balls and things like that. And I think the biggest problem with that is just kind of applying ourselves in that scenario, but nothing to do with the shape. You know, sometimes people will get down the outside of you because they've got decent players in wide areas. You know, what you don't want is them getting down through the middle of the pitch. The second goal here is where we've got the ball coming into Mateus Nunes, and a lot of people have kind of picked up on Semedo's positioning and the fact that they break into that left channel. This, for me, is really safe possession. The fact that Nunes has a heavy touch and loses the ball is all on him. It's very much an individual error, but there's no reason for anybody to expect us to lose the ball in that scenario. And we've actually got 3 players behind the ball if we are broken on to actually deal with whatever happens. Now, it transpires that you've got the ball gets picked up by the Brighton midfielder. I think it's Billy Gilmore who picks that up there. And what essentially happens there is everyone's trying to recover. Now, like I said, we've got 3 players who are running back towards our own goal to kind of deal with the situation. You've got Lamina, you've got Dawson, you've got Kilman. You've got options there in terms of the decision that you make. I think the 2 key people here are Dawson and Lamina, who one of them needs to try and interact with Enciso, who picks up the ball. Either Lamina runs across and sprints into that space and allows Dawson to cover the second run and force Enciso out wide, or Dawson goes out to engage Enciso earlier and Lamina drops in to cover his runner in the centre of the pitch. Now, what ends up happening is nothing, basically. You can see here, everybody just kind of runs in a straight line and everybody in the same position that they were. Lamina's not got back into the defensive line. Dawson's retreated to the edge of the box and not engaged. And finally, when he does get to engage, that means Kilman's had to run across towards Dawson's runner, who's made a run in behind him and has to half cover that, which then obviously opens up the space for Pascal Gross to go and finish the chance. And it's like the transition is what has killed us here. It's not a situation where, Brighton have built a really fantastic move. We've lost the ball in a relatively safe area of the pitch, been caught up upfield as a result of that, and they're broken on us. And then the decision making defensively just wasn't good enough. Now it's 2-0. What happens thereafter is what I would say is probably an unnecessary change in shape. You can see that from this kind of bird's eye angle, this was just a replay of a chance that Danny Welbeck got. Lopetegui decided to move us into a back 3. Now, I don't think personally the first 2 goals actually warranted us going into a back 3. I don't think there were 2 situations that were caused by us being bent out of shape, being kind of, taken advantage of because of we're not plugging gaps and things like that. And yet we still decided to go and change the formation. And I think this is where things really started to go wrong for us, because mid-game, whether they'd prepared a second formation in training this week or not, I don't know, obviously. But once you start meddling with the initial plan, this is when players can get a little bit confused. And whilst, the application of the players can be questioned, I think if you don't know why you're pressing or where you're pressing or where you should be holding your position, all these sorts of things, it can come across as if players aren't running, aren't trying, aren't working hard enough. But the reality is they've got so many things going through their head, especially against a team like Brighton, who really do kind of question you in terms of where you should be taking up positions on the field. They're a very unique team to play against. That really kind of caused Wolves to have a lot of trouble. And then we really started to kind of suffer without the ball. This is the kind of similar situation to what we had in the first half. And this, for me, is really, really confused. So you've got Mario Lamina, who ostensibly had dropped into the back 3 to play. He's come really, really high at the pitch. He's come out with Undav and obviously left spacing behind. Again, Brighton, we are originally encouraging them to kind of play the ball into Welbeck and Undav in the initial freeze frame that I showed you. But here, you've not got the cover that was coming up tight behind the ball when we had that first situation that I showed you. So when Welbeck receives the ball, I'll show you in the next screenshot here, he's actually got time to turn and play out to the left. And, that's where I think, again, the confusion reigns that are we dropping off? Are we pressing? Nobody knows where they should be. And you can see here I've highlighted that everybody's got dragged out wide. When you've got that kind of 5-2-3 shape that we ended up playing from there onwards, you can kind of end up vacating the centre of the pitch from a midfield perspective. Obviously, you're tightened up at the back with the extra centre half, but everybody ends up getting dragged out. I'm not sure what Mateus Nunes is doing in that kind of second freeze frame here. He's really kind of held a wide position, and you can see I've pointed out Pascal Gross as having plenty of space to run into. It wasn't this situation specifically, but he then goes on to score the 3rd goal from a relatively similar position with the touch and volley. And I think everything just totally went to shit basically once we made that formation change. We have praised Lopetegui for some proactive changes within games. He likes to kind of get ahead of situations in terms of anticipate problems occurring. I think on this occasion he kind of put his foot in it a little bit. I'd have preferred him to have stayed with the kind of 4-4-2 shape until half time and looked at it at half time maybe and thought about it with a little bit more time to understand what was going wrong within the game. But he decided to kind of drop us back off, and it didn't work at all. And then you're 4-0 down at half time. There was some really shoddy defending around the penalty area, which didn't help at all, especially for that fourth goal. But again, I think a lot of that was symptomatic of the fact that the shape was changed and the players just didn't really have a real clue of what they should have been doing. Look, it's not going to be reflective of what happens next week. I think ultimately we've seen that we're going to struggle without Mateus Cunha in the team. Diego Costa hasn't got the facilities to play as a lone number 9. Cunha doesn't either. I really want us to just kind of stick with the 4-4-2 and play out the rest of the season. I think we're more likely to pick up points playing that way, whoever we come up against now, between now and the end of the season. Hopefully then we can kind of look at building what is a bit of a blueprint for Lopetegui to work to going into next season, as I'm pretty sure we're safe now. But really disappointing afternoon, and hopefully he's learned something from that.